Thanks everyone for joining us today. We are going to talk about bonus plan regulations. We're going to probably hammer mostly on how they affect overtime in terms of wage and hour issues, but we're going to talk about some other things too, because we can, and it's fun and it's interesting because employment law is super exciting. At least I think so. I hope you agree. But without further ado, we're going to dive, excuse me, right into bonus plans. And all right, we're going to start off with discretionary bonuses. And discretionary bonuses here are regulated by federal law. Now, there are state rules that are going to affect a lot of what we talk about today. So for the interest of time and the interest of ease of use, we're going to talk about the federal law and how federal law governs these issues. So a bonus is considered discretionary under federal law only if it meets these following statutory requirements. Number one, that the employer has sole discretion until or near the end of the period that corresponds to the bonus to determine whether or not to pay the bonus at all. Number two, that the employer has the sole discretion, again, until or near the end of the period that corresponds to the bonus to determine the amount of the bonus. And number three, the bonus payment is not made according to any prior contract, agreement, or promise, causing an employee to expect such payments regularly. So what we're talking about here is if you have a contract or if you have a congressional bargaining agreement, collective bargaining agreement with your employees that state employees can expect this type of bonus if they do X, Y, or Z. If the bonus meets all those three bullet points I talked about, then it's going to be considered to be a discretionary bonus. Some examples of discretionary bonuses, holiday bonuses, Christmas bonuses, unless it's in your handbook that says all employees get a holiday bonus of $500 or whatever. The employer can choose not to give that bonus at any time they want. They can choose to change the amount of the bonus anytime they want up until they give the bonus. So that would be a good example of what is a discretionary bonus. There's other bonuses, random bonus. So if my boss Mark was on a webinar today and he said, you know what, that was the doggonest best employment law webinar I've ever seen in my life, and he just wanted to slip me $20 for doing a great job, he could do that, and that'd be discretionary. There's no promise that he's going to give me $20 for doing a great job. There's no promise that he has to give me anything at all, and there's no he has the right to change his mind in terms of how much to give me or whether or not to give me a bonus at all. So that would be another example of a discretionary bonus. Moving on to non-discretionary bonuses. So a non-discretionary bonus is a real simple definition here. A non-discretionary bonus is a bonus that fails to meet the statutory requirements of a discretionary bonus. So it's an either or. Either it meets all the requirements to be a discretionary bonus, or it's not, and it therefore becomes a non-discretionary bonus. Some examples of a non-discretionary bonus would be like bonuses based upon a predetermined formula, such as individual or group sales or production bonuses. Bonuses for the quality and accuracy of work. Bonuses announced to employees to induce them to work more efficiently. Attendance bonuses. If you show up every day for the quarter and don't have a unexcused absence, you get an attendance bonus. Safety bonuses can be in there. This work site has gone 32 days without an incident. Though the legality of those has wavered back and forth, but I think they're legal again now. So those are the types of bonuses that we can talk about that are probably going to be non-discretionary bonuses. The bonuses are non-discretionary because the employees know about and expect the bonus if they meet the certain terms that have been laid out. So that's one way to think about it. So in general, discretionary bonuses can be excluded from the regular rate of pay when figuring out what somebody's overtime is, while non-discretionary bonuses cannot be excluded from the regular rate of pay when figuring out somebody's overtime. So said another way, only discretionary bonuses can be excluded from figuring out what somebody's overtime rate of pay would be. There are some tricky things we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth, but if the bonus covers more than one work week, things get trickier. If bonus covers only one work week, it gets real simple. Let's say it's a $400 bonus. There's no question if it applies to that work week, so you get $400 if you sell 100 widgets in this work week. There's no question that that bonus only applies to that one work week, and it makes your calculations, which we'll see in a little bit, a lot easier. If it covers more than 1 week, then that's where we have to do some more math. Basically, if it covers more than 1 week, such as a quarterly bonus or a monthly bonus or an annual bonus, at that point, you would allocate the bonus in proportion to the amount of the bonus actually earned each work week. So using simple example, if it's a quarterly production bonus or sales bonus, that counts the total number of sales or the productivity over a quarter, you would divide that bonus over the weeks of that quarter. So I believe there's 13 weeks in a quarter. And so if you were to have a $1,300 bonus, to make the math easy, each week would get $100 allocated to it for helping or going to calculate the overtime regular rate of pay. All right, what time? We got 11:08. We got some time for some examples here. First example, John. John's popular. He's in all three of my examples here. John earns 15 bucks an hour. He works 48 hours in 1 week. He also earns a sales bonus of $500 for sales made in that one work week. What is his average rate of pay for overtime purposes? Well, we got to do some math here. So bust out your calculators. 48 hours times $15 an hour equals $720 in base wages. What we do then is we have that 720 bucks, and then we add 500 bucks for that bonus to get a total amount of $1,220 in base wages for those weeks. At that point, we take that 1220 and we divide it by the number of hours worked, 48, to get the regular rate of pay, the average rate of pay. And so 1220 divided by 48 equals 25.416666, repeating. And so that would mean that John, because of that hefty bonus, that 500 bucks really made a big impact. He gets paid, more than time and a half for overtime. If you think about a straight hourly rate, he gets paid 38 1/8 or 38.125 per hour of overtime. So you can see how big bonuses potentially, if they're related to one work week, can really swing how much money someone earns for overtime and how much exposure you potentially could have for mispaying someone. Now, there's a little bit of an absurd example, right? You aren't going to give someone making 15 bucks an hour a $500 bonus for sales made in 1 week, most likely. That $500 bonus would probably be spread out over a month or a quarter or something like that. It's not going to be a weekly bonus that they could make unless they're an amazing salesperson. At which point, great, because you're selling lots of stuff and earning lots of revenue and making lots of profit. All right, on to example 2. John earns 15 bucks an hour. He works 48 hours in a week. He's very consistent. He also earns a holiday bonus of $500 in that week. What is John's average rate for overtime purposes here? Well, I'm not going to lie, it's a trick question. Holiday bonuses are likely to be considered discretionary bonuses. And as a discretionary bonus, it's going to be excluded from overtime calculations. So you don't care, that could have been a $1,500 bonus. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect John's overtime rate or his average rate. He's going to be paid time and a half at 15 bucks an hour for those extra 8 hours. So an extra $7.50 per hour, which his overtime rate would be a total of $22.50 for overtime. Example number 3, we have John. John earns 15 bucks an hour. Again, he hasn't gotten a raise, poor guy. He works 35 hours in a work week. In that work week, he also takes 8 hours of vacation, so he must have worked more than 8 hours in one of those days in order to get there. He also earns a sales bonus of 500 bucks for sales made in that week. What is his average rate for overtime purposes? Well, you're going to hate me, but this is another trick question here. The 8 hours of vacation don't count as hours worked under the Fair Labor Standards Act for overtime purposes. For overtime purposes, you have to work, hours actually worked have to be over 40. Here, John only worked 35 hours. And so those extra 8 hours of PTO, even though he's going to get paid for 43 hours of work in that week, by virtue of his taking 8 hours of PTO, he's actually not going to earn any overtime because he didn't work. He didn't actually work more than 40 hours. And as such, that $500 sales bonus is a red herring. It doesn't mean anything. It stays out of calculations for what we're doing. And at that point, we don't have to worry about averaging his rate, and we don't have to do anything in terms of averaging how much money he's making. All right. So that was dealing with exempt employees. Right now, we're going to talk a little bit about, in a couple minutes we have left, non-exempt employees. The non-exempt employees obviously do not make overtime. And so it doesn't matter how many hours they work in a week, and it doesn't matter what their average rate of pay is, they're not going to earn overtime. So employees who are exempt, we don't really care what type of bonus it is for the most part in terms of figuring out what they're going to be paid each week. What we care about is whether or not somebody meets the threshold test for the salary basis test. So going back a little bit, we know that exempt employees have to meet both the duties test and the salary basis test to be exempt under the Fair Labor Standards Act. State laws vary a little bit in terms of what the duties are or what the salary basis is, but those are things that we have to pay attention to in terms of figuring out whether or not somebody is exempt or not, and therefore really do not have to be paid overtime. So exempt test, you might want to think of the white collar benefits or white collar professions, administrative, professional, and executive. Those are the basic ones, outside sales. There's a whole bunch of exempt classes, and the tests are pretty easy in terms of duties tests. The other thing you want to look at in terms of whether or not somebody is validly exempt under the Fair Labor Standards Act is going to be the salary basis test. So they have to be paid a fixed salary, which can't be reduced by the number of hours that they work or don't work, and can't be reduced based upon the quality of their work. Employers need to pay, I think it's, well, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but it's like $35,500 a year, which I believe is like $684 a week to be exempt. Those numbers are changing July 1st and January 1st under regulations proposed by the Department of Labor. They would increase those wages into, I believe it's $800 some an hour for the July 1st increase, and it's going to be $844 a week for the first increase, and it's going to be $1,128 a week for the second increase in January, should these go through and not be struck down by a court. Where the bonus issue comes in is that employers may use non-discretionary bonuses and incentive payments, such as commissions, to satisfy up to 10% of the salary test requirements for white collar employees, so long as the bonuses are paid at least annually. So if an employee has an incentive bonus based upon sales or productivity, at that point, employers can use non-discretionary bonuses to make up the difference between the salary that the employee is actually paid and add the bonus to determine whether or not they have met that salary threshold. So here's an example. Example one. This is my only example, so I didn't number it. Sally earns $34,000 a year. She meets the duties test for professional exemption. No argument there. On an annual basis, Sally is paid a bonus of $5,000, period. Does she meet the salary threshold and salary basis test? We're going to presume the sale that she meets the salary basis test, that the employer is complying with all the rules in terms of not reducing pay based upon the number of hours worked, et cetera, et cetera. And so then the question is, does she meet the salary threshold test? Well, right now at $684 a week, the salary threshold test is $35,568, so $35,568 per year. You can see she's only making 34 grand a year, which is less than that salary threshold under the current rule. If she makes a bonus of $5,000, that would bring her up to 39. That 39 is actually not real math, because you can only use 10% of the salary basis, like I said. So she'll still get more than the 1,500 or so that's required to get her over that hump to be considered exempt under the salary threshold that is currently in place. So she would be over that 35,568 number. But does it matter if this bonus is a holiday bonus or if it's based upon performance metrics? If this is just a holiday bonus, it's a discretionary bonus, and therefore that number bumping over the 35,568 a year would not make her exempt under the Fair Labor Standards Act. On the other hand, if this is a performance metric bonus, such as sales or productivity or something other, that would be a non-discretionary bonus. At that point, if that bonus is non-discretionary, it would count towards the salary threshold, and she would be considered an exempt employee. All right, with that, we're just about out of time. So if you have any questions, I'm going to take a gander over here on the side. But other than that, if there are any questions, feel free to submit them to us via our Ask ticketing system. We'll get you answered. We'll get you set up with the right legal compliant answers so you guys can move forward and not have to worry about facing some sort of wage and hour lawsuit or similar things that would be not fun to deal with. So thank you all for joining us. I don't see any questions. Dan, you can poke me if I missed any. But other than that, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks.